can we agree, or at least I'd love to hear your perspective on this, that Israel's actions since October the 7th, from how they've retaliated against Gaza and against Hamas, as you mentioned, there's probably around 19,000 casualties at this point, 20,000 casualties at this point. Can we agree that at worst, that's a genocide, and at best, that's an army that doesn't care enough about Palestinian lives? Destiny.
Are we saying that because of the October 7th, or I'm sorry, because of the incursions into Gaza, Israel doesn't care about Palestinian lives? Is that essentially the question?
No, the question of how they've reacted since then, of all the civilian casualties have been. I mean, even for example, they killed accidentally 3 hostages of their own hostages. I mean, doesn't that say something?
I mean, what does it say? I think
who are holding white flags.
So here are issues that I have with Israel and the IDF, okay? One, here are some broad issues, and then I'll focus it more into Gaza, okay? So one is settler violence seems to be really hard for the IDF to account for in the West Bank, okay? There are settlers that will kill people in the West Bank, that will kill Palestinians, that either it goes unanswered or the punishments are suspect, as in they probably should be higher. And then you also see a lot of antagonism towards people in the West Bank, including from the IDF. These are bad things that need to be rectified. Okay, when you look in the West Bank. When you look in the Gaza Strip, the civilian casualty count is high, and there are actions that happen that I think we should ask questions about. So my understanding is, I don't think anything else has come out, for those 3 hostages that came out, they were shirtless and they were waving a white flag on a stick, okay? How these 3 people end up getting killed by the IDF, not only is that unacceptable, obviously, should also make you question, well, if that happened and those were hostages, have there been other instances of the IDF shooting people that also were presenting similarly in conditions where they were clearly or obviously not a threat? That being said, while these incidents do happen and they're horrible, something that we need to keep in mind is that we have an unprecedented view into the day-to-day ongoings of military conflict that we have never had in the past. I am sure that we've seen it happen on the Ukrainian side and the Russian side, where civilians or soldiers that seem to have surrendered or that aren't threats are being killed, either by drones, either by soldiers, either by grenades. We are having an unprecedented look into military conflict on the day-to-day. To assume that this is like magnitudes worse than ever it has been, or that military conflict was historically, is probably not true. That doesn't excuse any of the actions, of course. It should always come under review. There should be other people that are investigating potential war crimes, whether that's Israel being forced to evaluate or third-party people like Amnesty International or the UN Human Rights Watch evaluating it. Like all of these things, I think the more eyes on this, the better. Okay, 1, 2. However, a couple other things. One, I don't like the term indiscriminate killing because, one, if it was truly indiscriminate and there were truly carpet bombing runs, Dresden saw 50,000 people evaporated in like 24 hours, okay? The Tokyo bombing saw more people disintegrated than Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined when it came to bombing. That's what indiscriminate bombing looks like, and both of those areas were far less densely populated than the Gaza Strip. We need to be asking questions about how do we deal with Hamas in a way that limits civilian casualties, but doesn't just let Hamas get off scot-free? That cannot be the answer. I agree that the civilian casualty count is high. Even if I accept that Israel is saying it is killing Hamas terrorists, I think they've said, 5,000? That still leaves 10,000 plus civilians that have been killed by Israeli munitions. It's not good, but the answer cannot be ceasefire, 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 where Hamas remains in power. That's unbelievably unacceptable, and I think it shows an insane inability to empathize with the Israeli side here that just got essentially 9/11, a month and a half ago.
Oh, wait, so let me actually push you on the question I actually asked. Do you think Israel care enough about Palestinian lives?
Do I think they care enough about them? I would lean like 51-49 yes. The issue is that I don't have insight into the decisions that are being made in Israeli command when it comes to choosing targets. It could be the case that tomorrow, let's say a huge commission is ran and you find out that the IDF is looking at a target and they're saying, there was a Hamas in here 7 days ago, let's f***ing bomb it. And they blow up an entire apartment complex and 40, 50, 60 civilians die. That's not acceptable. It could be the case that we see in a lot of targets, there's Hamas operating out of here. We've dropped leaflets. We know that they use this for command. We've done everything we can. We are going to bomb it. They bomb it. 20, 30 civilians are killed. I'd say in that sense, they did essentially what they could. I don't know what the alternatives here are. I'd love to hear them if there are any, because it seems like the only thing people say is ceasefire and peace, which cannot happen with Hamas. So yeah, I would lean towards, just on the numbers that I've seen so far and everything, it seems like Israel is considering civilian casualties, as much people want to say they aren't, but I can't truly give you an honest answer to that without understanding the decisions that are being made within the Israeli military, because that could go either way.